I was just relaxing in my apartment when my phone suddenly lit up. It was my mom, which was instantly strange because she never calls past 9 p.m. Like, seriously, it's her personal rule to be in bed by 10. So the second I saw her name, my stomach just dropped. I picked up, heart pounding, convinced something terrible had happened, like hospital level bad. She started with, "Hi, sweetheart, are you alone right now?" And her voice sounded off. I told her, yeah, my roommate was out of town visiting her boyfriend. And then she took this long breath and said, "Good. I need to tell you something important, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything." At this point, I was spiraling. Was she sick? Was my dad sick? Were they splitting up after 35 years of being the one couple that everyone in the family looked up to? She told me to sit down, and I did. I grabbed my softest blanket and curled up on the couch like I was 8 again, bracing for something huge. And then she brought up a name I hadn't heard in years. Elizabeth. Quick backstory. Elizabeth is my mom's sister. I've never met her. Ever. She lives on the other side of the country and had a major falling out with my mom long before I was born. Growing up, she was like this ghost. Her name would occasionally come up, mostly when my mom had a glass of wine around the holidays and started getting emotional. Dad always changed the subject, and no one ever pushed it. But now, out of nowhere, Mom was telling me about their childhood, how she and Elizabeth used to be inseparable, shared a room, braided each other's hair, giggled about boys, all the sister stuff. Then, in their early 20s, Elizabeth started dating this guy named Tom. And apparently Tom was bad news. Mom didn't go into detail, just said things got weird fast. Elizabeth started distancing herself from the family. She'd skip holidays, ignore calls, and when she did show up, she'd argue with everyone, especially my grandparents. Eventually, she just vanished. For 6 months. No phone calls, no letters. Keep in mind, this was the 1980s. No texting, no social media. At this point, I'm wondering why she's telling me all this now. Midnight isn't exactly story time, but something in her voice told me it was building to something big. Then she told me. One night, out of the blue, Elizabeth showed up at her apartment, crying, pregnant. Tom had taken off and she had nowhere else to go. My mom took her in, helped her through the entire pregnancy, even stayed with her during the delivery. I was still confused, but letting her talk. She said after the baby was born, Elizabeth struggled a lot, like serious postpartum issues. Couldn't get out of bed, couldn't take care of her own baby. So my mom stepped in, working full-time, caring for a newborn, trying to hold it all together. And then, 3 months in, Elizabeth suddenly announced she'd gotten a job offer in California. Said she was taking the baby and starting fresh. Mom was skeptical but hopeful. She helped pack her things, bought her a bus ticket, gave her everything she could. But the night before she was supposed to leave, Mom came home from work to find a note on the table. It said, "I can't do this. She deserves better. Please forgive me someday." I swear I went cold. I knew where this was going, but my brain didn't want to accept it. She said she called the police, but legally Elizabeth hadn't done anything wrong. Since my mom was the closest family member, she was made the baby's legal guardian. Time passed. Weeks turned into months. And in that time, my mom fell in love with the baby. Eventually, they found Elizabeth in California. She legally gave up her parental rights. And my mom officially adopted the baby girl, with a promise to never tell her the truth until she was old enough to understand. I dropped my phone. Literally. My hands were shaking. She whispered, "Sweetheart, that baby was you. Elizabeth is your birth mother. I'm actually your aunt." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The woman I've called Mom my entire life, the one who raised me, wasn't my biological mother. And the aunt I'd never met had been the one who gave birth to me. And then walked away. My mom? My aunt? I don't even know what to call her anymore. She started crying. She said she'd wanted to tell me for years but could never find the right moment. And then she said Elizabeth had reached out recently, asking if they could reconnect. She wanted me to hear it from her before that happened. I hung up. I didn't say anything. I just ended the call. I haven't talked to Elizabeth. Yet. First update coming soon. Hey, I'm back. And I wish I could say things have calmed down, but honestly, it's the exact opposite. I don't even know where to begin because after that call, I didn't do anything. I just sat there on my couch in the dark, wrapped in this old hoodie that smells like every bad day I've ever had, mindlessly scrolling through Instagram reels, trying not to think. Spoiler alert, didn't work. I maybe slept 2 hours, tops. Woke up with that heavy feeling, like when your body already knows you're going to cry again. I made coffee, stared at the fridge like it owed me answers. I think I texted my roommate Megan something like, "Hope you're having fun, cat's fine, all good here." Total lie. I was a mess. For about 3 days, I was in full autopilot mode. I left the apartment, did my usual errands, but every little thing kept dragging me back to that phone call. I'd be in line at the store, then suddenly remember her voice, shaky, unsure, and I'd just tense up. I kept thinking I should call her back. Or text, but every time I picked up my phone, I felt this wave of frustration. And I'm not the type to get like that. I'm usually the calm one, the let's talk it out person. But this felt different. Why now? Why me? Why dig up something this massive after all this time? If it was buried for decades, why not just let it stay buried? And then, of course, I'd spiral. What else didn't she tell me? What else was a lie? Megan got back on Sunday night, I think. The second she walked through the door, she looked at me and said, "You okay?" And I gave the standard, "Yeah, I'm fine," which obviously was not convincing, because 5 minutes later she plopped down next to me, still in her boots, and said, "Okay, spill. You look like someone told you your cat's actually a lizard." Subtlety is not her thing. I don't even know why, but it just all came out. Like, word vomit. The whole mess. My mom isn't my mom. She's actually my aunt. Elizabeth is my birth mother, and apparently I'm the big family secret. And Megan? She just sat there and let me talk. No unsolicited advice, no dramatic reactions. Just calm, thoughtful questions. The kind you ask when you're trying to actually understand. Like, how do you know for sure? Are you going to meet her? Do you even want to? Did your mom ever drop hints before? Then she asked if I wanted her to stay home for a few days. Super sweet, but I said no. I didn't want her rearranging her life just because mine had suddenly turned upside down. What I did want? Either to rewind time or hit fast forward. Anything but being stuck in this exact moment. Monday morning, I finally gave in and texted well, I guess she's still mom to me, so I'll stick with that. I texted her and said, "We need to talk." She replied instantly, like she'd been waiting for that message all along. She asked if I could come over after dinner. Part of me wanted to say no, but I knew if I didn't face this, I'd just keep spinning. So I said yes. The whole day was a blur. I kept trying not to think about it, but every little notification on my phone made my heart jump. When it was finally time, I sat in my car outside her house for a solid 5 minutes, just staring at the front door, wondering if I'd feel any different now. I didn't. But something about the house felt off. Smaller, like it was a set on a stage or something. She answered the door and instantly went into full mom mode, offering tea, asking if I'd eaten. And I just said, "Can we sit?" Her hands were shaking a little as she poured water, and she kept sneaking glances at me like I might burst into flames. I started with the obvious. Why now? Why not just keep it hidden forever? And she looked so worn out. Like she'd aged 10 years since the last time I saw her. She told me she'd wanted to tell me for a long time, that she tried more than once. But every time she got scared. Scared I'd hate her. Scared I'd leave. And then when Elizabeth reached out last week, she panicked. She thought if I found out from someone else, it would be worse. I don't know. Maybe she's right, but it still hurt. I asked her for answers. Like, what was so bad about Tom? Why did Elizabeth leave me? Was it drugs or something? And she paused, then said no. It wasn't anything like that. She said Tom was the kind of person who isolates you. That he convinced Elizabeth our family hated her. That she was the outsider. That he was the only one who cared. My mom, the woman who raised me, said she tried to reach her, to help, but it always made things worse. And eventually, their parents gave up trying too. When Elizabeth got pregnant and Tom bailed, she spiraled. Not into substances, into depression. The kind nobody talked about back then. Nobody knew how to help. Nobody even tried. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. Elizabeth was always jealous of me. She said it so quietly, like it was hard for her to admit. But then she started telling me about these little things. Like how Elizabeth would copy her outfits. So yeah, my phone's been blowing up. Everyone's acting like I'm walking into some emotional minefield. And honestly, maybe I am. But I can't not go. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering. Megan keeps saying she's proud of me for facing it head on, but if I'm being real, I just feel exhausted. Not long day, tired. Deeply, permanently tired. The meeting is tomorrow. I have no clue what I'm going to say. I don't even know what Elizabeth looks like. I don't know if I'll recognize anything in her. Anything that feels familiar. I keep thinking about all those family photos growing up, and how she was never in any of them. All those holidays with that one empty seat. And now, I guess I'm finally going to see who was supposed to be sitting there. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'll update after it happens. But if you've been through anything even remotely like this, I'd really love to hear how you handled it. Because right now, I feel like everyone else got a script, and I'm just out here winging it. Second update. Okay, so I said I'd come back and tell you how it went. And now here I am, sitting in the dark at 2 a.m. eating dry cereal out of a coffee mug because sleep is just not happening. My brain is going in circles like a broken washing machine. So yeah, here's the story. Spoiler. It was messier than I expected. I decided to go alone. And not gonna lie, I almost bailed 4 separate times. I spent the morning pacing, changing shirts, putting on makeup, wiping it off, putting it back on. I stared in the mirror way too long, just wondering, do I look like her? Like, would I even know her if we passed on the street? Megan, bless her, was incredible. Let me ramble, made me eat a banana so I wouldn't get hangry, and even offered to fake a plumbing emergency if I needed an escape plan. Roommate gold, truly. I Ubered to the coffee place. No way was I driving or risking running into someone I knew. I got there 20 minutes early and grabbed the seat farthest from the door, thinking maybe that would give me some kind of control. Spoiler, it didn't. I sat there with a bad iced coffee, scrolling through my feed without actually seeing anything. Every time the door opened, my heart jumped. There was this guy watching soccer at the next table, and a girl in a giant scarf who definitely thought I was waiting on a dating app disaster. She kept glancing over like she was this close to offering me a tissue. Elizabeth was exactly 2 minutes late. I knew it was her the moment she walked in. She looked like me. Older, a little more worn down, but definitely me. Same eyes. Same little frown line I've seen in my own reflection. She hesitated in the doorway, then spotted me and gave this half smile. I waved, because what else do you do? And she came over, clutching her bag like it had secrets in it. First impression, taller than I expected, darker hair, softer face. But those eyes, same shape, same stare. We sat, did the awkward, "Hi, how are you" thing. But like, what do you even say to someone who gave you away and then disappeared for 30 years? She said I looked so much like her at my age, and I just said, thanks, even though it hit weird. Then came a silence. We both pretended to glance at the menu like we hadn't already ordered. Her hands kept fidgeting with her sleeves, picking at her nails. She asked safe questions. How's work? Do I like my apartment? Is my roommate nice? I answered, but only just. I wanted her to feel how strange this was for me. This wasn't a catch-up over coffee. This was me meeting a stranger who used to be my mother. 10 minutes in, I couldn't take it anymore. I just asked, "So why did you leave?" She looked like I'd hit her, but I didn't care. I wasn't there to make her comfortable. She said she was young, overwhelmed. She didn't know how to be a mom. I cut her off. But you had my mom. You had a whole family. She got teary. Said it wasn't that simple. That she felt like a burden. That after Tom left, everything changed. The family looked at her differently. Said she was the problem. That no one believed in her. She said it felt like she was drowning. I asked her if she ever thought about coming back. She said she did. All the time. That she called the house more times than I'd ever guess. But every time she'd panic and hang up. She said she kept up with me from a distance. Heard about birthdays, holidays, school stuff. But she didn't want to mess up the life I was building. Said she thought she was protecting me. And that's when I finally said it. You don't get to call disappearing love. That's not how it works. You don't just disappear and then come back years later, saying it was to protect me. You didn't try. That's what I told her. And she started crying. Right there, in the middle of a crowded coffee shop, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. And I just sat back and let her. I wasn't going to comfort her. It didn't feel right. We went back and forth for a while. She kept apologizing, saying she wished she could undo it all, that she'd gotten help, that she was different now. And I said, that's great. For you, but it doesn't fix anything for me. I asked if she ever thought about what it felt like for me, growing up with this constant sense that something was off, like I was living in my own life but missing a piece I didn't even know existed. She said she thought about that all the time, that she had nightmares about me hating her, about me never wanting to speak to her again, and I told her, maybe that's just reality. At one point, she reached across the table like she wanted to hold my hand, and I pulled back. I told her I wasn't ready for that. I asked her straight up, "What do you want from me?" Did she want to be my mom now? Was this about forgiveness? Was it just a way to clear her conscience? She looked down at her drink and said she didn't know, that maybe she just wanted to know me, even if only once. And then things got messier. My phone started buzzing nonstop. I glanced at the screen. Text from my mom, the one who raised me. A missed call from my grandma. I ignored them all. But then Megan texted me, "Are you good?" And that's when I realized I'd been sitting there for almost an hour. I told Elizabeth I needed a break. She nodded, said she understood. I stepped outside and called Megan, told her I was okay, just needed 30 more minutes. That's when she told me my mom had called the apartment. She was freaking out. I guess I should have told her where I was going. But honestly, I didn't want the drama. I didn't want her trying to stop me. When I walked back in, Elizabeth was still at the table, staring at her phone. I told her about the messages. She asked if I wanted to talk about my mom, and I told her, "I don't even know what to call either of you anymore. It's like I have two moms and no moms at the same time." She smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. She said she understood. Said she'd always felt like someone's daughter, but not really. Then she opened up more about Tom. Said he was controlling, that he'd go through her phone, make her feel worthless just for talking to my mom. By the time I was born, she didn't trust anyone, not even herself. She said when she left me, it wasn't because she didn't love me. It was because she thought I deserved someone stronger. I asked, "So you just gave up?" And she nodded. I expected her to get defensive, but she just looked tired. And then she said something that caught me off guard. She admitted she'd resented my mom for stepping in. Not because she didn't want me to be loved, but because it felt like losing twice. Once when Tom left, and again when she saw how happy I was without her. She said that sometimes my grandma would send photos, and when she saw me smiling, part of her felt relief. But another part of her felt this burning jealousy, that she couldn't be the one raising me. I asked, "Were you mad at me? Did you hate me for being happy?" She said no, never. That she never hated me. But sometimes, she hated herself for not being enough. And I just sat there, not even sure what I was feeling anymore. Pity? Anger? I don't know. We both sat in silence, staring into half-empty cups, while the cafe got louder around us. I noticed people starting to glance our way like they could feel the tension. And then, because life loves dramatic timing, my phone rang again. This time it was Grandma. I answered just to stop the buzzing, and she instantly launched into, "Are you okay? Are you safe? Do you need a ride?" I told her I was fine, that I was with Elizabeth. She sighed and said, "You know how your mother gets." And I said, "Which one?" Silence. Then she said, "Just come for dinner tonight if you can. We all need to talk." I told her I'd think about it. Hung up. Told Elizabeth about the invite. She looked uneasy. Said she hadn't seen her parents since she signed away her rights. She asked if I wanted her to come. I said I wasn't sure, but maybe it was time for everyone to stop hiding. The last half hour was different. We stopped talking about the heavy stuff. Talked about movies, music, food. I said I still hate Brussels sprouts, and she laughed, said that's genetic. I started noticing little things in her that felt weirdly familiar. A gesture, a tone. It was like looking into a slightly older version of myself. And that was honestly the weirdest part. When it was time to go, neither of us wanted to be the first to stand. But she finally did. Slung her bag over her shoulder and said she hoped I'd call again. I said I'd think about it. She nodded and left. No hug, no tears, just gone. When I got home, my mom was in the kitchen. She'd clearly been crying. Eyes red, nose puffy. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me like she was waiting for a storm. I put my bag down and sat across from her, and she asked quietly, "Did she say anything?" It felt strange, but I told her everything. No filters, no edits. Even the messy parts. She got defensive pretty quickly. Said Elizabeth always played the victim, always blamed everyone else. I told her that maybe everyone in this family had spent too long pointing fingers, and that's why I was left in the dark all these years. She tried to argue, but I held up my hand. "I'm not picking sides," I said. "I just want the truth." She said the truth was this. She did her best. She loved me, and if she had to do it all again, she'd still choose me. I told her I believed her, but that didn't mean I wasn't angry. Megan came home in the middle of all this. She just gave us a look, popped in her headphones, and disappeared into her room like any sane person would. A few minutes later, she literally texted me from 10 feet away, asking if I needed ice cream or wanted to scream into a pillow. I sent back the skull emoji. Then came dinner at my grandparents' house, because at that point I figured I might as well rip the entire emotional bandage off. Everyone was there. My mom, Elizabeth, Grandma, Grandpa, even my cousin Riley, who kept making the world's most awkward jokes about family reunions. The tension? Off the charts. Grandma tried to keep things normal, passing dishes, talking about the weather, but no one was eating. Elizabeth barely spoke. My mom kept glaring at her. Grandpa just stared at his plate like it had all the answers. Eventually, Grandma took a breath and said what we were all thinking. We need to talk. For real. Not just pretend. And that's when the gloves came off. My mom jumped in, saying Elizabeth had no right to just show up now, that she gave up her chance, that this was all just drama. Elizabeth fired back, saying she'd been pushed out, that no one ever wanted her around in the first place, that she was just doing what everyone already expected. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed my fork down and said, "This isn't about either of you. This is about me. I'm the one who's been lied to. I'm the one who has to carry this, not you." I told them I was done being their excuse to fight. I wasn't picking sides. I was exhausted. And if they wanted to be in my life, they had to sort their own stuff out without using me as the battlefield. After that, silence. Just a heavy, painful silence. Grandma was the first to speak. She said she was sorry, that they'd all failed me in different ways. Grandpa nodded, still not looking up. My mom started crying, and Elizabeth just looked away. I left before dessert, grabbed my bag and walked out. No one followed me. Back at my apartment, Megan was asleep. The cat was curled up on my blanket. I sat in the dark, wondering what comes next. I don't feel better exactly, but I do feel clearer. Like at least I finally said the things that needed to be said. I don't know if I'll ever truly forgive either of them, or if I even want to, but I do know this. I'm not letting them use me to relive their own unfinished drama. That ends here. So yeah, that's the update. The family group chat is blowing up. People are picking sides. Grandma keeps sending just love each other memes like she's running PR for a crisis. And me? I'm just here trying to find a clean spoon. If you've made it this far, thanks. Really. And if you've got advice, I'll take it, because I genuinely have no idea what comes next. Last update. I keep trying to write this out in my notes app, and every time it reads like I'm recapping a soap opera. But if you followed this saga from the beginning, you know I'm not even exaggerating. If anything, I'm underplaying it because it's just too much to take in all at once. So, here's what happened after that dinner. After I basically told my entire family to stop dragging me into their decades-long sibling war. The next morning, I woke up to 4 missed calls from Grandma, a stream of texts from my mom, yes, still calling her that, don't care, and a random thinking of you email from Elizabeth. I didn't respond to any of them, just laid in bed, scrolling through vacation posts and cat memes, trying to pretend like things were normal. But my brain was stuck on replay. Then Aunt Tracy, yeah, surprise, there's a third sister, chimed in from Florida, telling everyone to show a little grace. Which, honestly, coming from someone who never even shows up for the holidays, felt a bit rich. Megan came into my room with coffee and sat on the edge of my bed like she was about to deliver a eulogy. Instead, she gently nudged me and said, "Your grandma's been calling here too. Are you gonna answer?" I told her no, that I didn't want to talk to anyone. She just shrugged and said, "At least let them know you're alive." So I finally texted Grandma, "I'm okay, just need space. Love you." She immediately sent back 10 heart emojis and a mini essay about how family can heal if we try. I flipped my phone face down and stared at the ceiling. That whole day felt suspended. I went for a long walk, bought a donut, sat in the park watching 2 kids try to catch a squirrel. And somewhere in that quiet, I realized I was just waiting, like expecting my mom to show up out of nowhere and demand I come home. But nobody did. And by the time I got back to the apartment, Megan was making pasta and playing music, and for a moment, it actually felt normal again. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie, and I said yes. So we curled up on the couch, eating pasta straight from the pot with forks, because we were way too lazy to do dishes, and watched some dumb comedy we'd both seen 100 times. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel like I was hanging by a thread. But then the next morning, everything blew up. I woke up to a voicemail from my grandpa, which was wild because he never calls. His voice sounded scratchy and tired, like he hadn't slept at all. He just said, "Call me when you can. We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I waited until the afternoon, half hoping he wouldn't answer. But he did. There was a long pause, and then he said, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." I asked him what he meant, and he just kept apologizing. He said he should have stepped in, that none of this was fair. Not to me, not to Elizabeth, not to my mom. He said Grandma was struggling, that my mom wasn't sleeping, and that Elizabeth had called him crying. I asked if he was mad at me. He said, "No, never." But he was sad. He told me families are like knots, easy to tie, almost impossible to untangle. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. After the call, I felt weird, like I was carrying everyone's emotions again. Guilty, but also annoyed, because once again, I was at the center of something I didn't ask to be part of. And then things got even more chaotic. I thought maybe if I just stayed quiet, everything would calm down. But no. Instead, the family group chat turned into a full-on battle. Grandma kept telling everyone to stop. My mom accused Elizabeth of manipulating me. Elizabeth said she just wanted to explain. Tracy, from Florida, dropped in with a, "Let's all take a breath." Grandpa sent a link to an article about forgiveness. Because of course he did. And Riley dropped a meme of a burning bridge, and then left the chat. I just muted the notifications and let it scroll by. But then, that night, my mom showed up at my apartment. She knocked. When I opened the door, she was clutching her keys so tight her knuckles were white. Megan hovered in the kitchen, pretending to be busy. My mom sat down on the couch without even taking off her coat. She said she needed to talk. I told her that was fine, but only if she was honest. She started crying again, but at this point, I didn't feel much, just numb. She said she was scared, that she felt like she was losing me, that she didn't know how to fix things. And I told her, it's not about fixing it, it's about facing it. I said I was done being the glue. I wasn't going to hold the whole family together anymore. She asked if I planned to see Elizabeth again. I told her I wasn't sure. Then she said, "If you do, I want to be there." I told her that wasn't going to happen. She got sharp. Not loud, just cold. She said Elizabeth always ruined everything, that she was only reaching out now because she wanted something. I asked her, "What does that even mean?" She just shook her head and said, "You don't understand. She's always been like this, needing attention, making everything about her." I looked at her and said, "Maybe that's true, but it's not my problem to solve." She didn't respond, just stood up and left. I sat there staring at the little dent in the carpet where her suitcase always sat when she'd visit. Megan came in, handed me a glass of water and said, "That was a lot." I just nodded. She stayed with me in silence. A few hours later, I got a text from Elizabeth. She said she was sorry for causing so much chaos, that she never meant to blow up my life, that if I didn't want to see her again, she'd understand. She said she was leaving town in 2 days, but she'd be at a hotel, just in case I changed my mind. I didn't reply, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I called Grandma just to hear her voice. She sighed when she answered and said she was tired, but glad I called. She told me she loved me, no matter what, and that even if everyone else was fighting, she would always be there. I asked her if I should see Elizabeth again. She said only if I wanted to, not for anyone else. The next day, things hit a new level of awkward. I was at the grocery store walking back to my car and ran into Riley in the parking lot. He gave me this huge hug, totally out of nowhere, and said he was sorry about the memes, that he didn't know what else to do. He said the family was unraveling, that Grandma was crying, Grandpa wasn't speaking, and Tracy had started texting him casserole recipes like that would magically fix the tension. He looked at me and asked, "Are you okay?" And I told him the most honest thing I could. "I don't know." He said, "Whatever happens, I've got your back." In the end, I decided to go. Not for Elizabeth. Not for my mom. For me. Riley and I had ended up leaning on my car that day, just talking about everything but the family chaos. And when I got home, I saw 3 missed calls from my mom. I ignored them. That night, I made up my mind. I needed closure, or at least clarity. I texted Megan where I was going, turned on location sharing, safety first, and called an Uber to the hotel. It was this sad little place near the highway, the kind that always looks like it's been raining, even when it hasn't. I waited in the lobby until Elizabeth came down. She looked different, tired, like the weight of the last few weeks had finally settled on her. We sat in this tiny lounge area, fake plants, a vending machine humming in the corner, and she asked if I wanted coffee. I just shook my head. I told her I had questions, and I wanted real answers. No more, I didn't know what to do, or I was scared. Just the truth. She nodded and said she understood. So I asked her straight up, why now? Why not 20 years ago? Why not when I graduated? When Grandma got sick? Why now? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said she had tried. More than once. But every time she reached out, my mom shut her down, told her I wasn't ready, that it would ruin everything, that I was better off not knowing. And for a while she believed her. But then she realized it wasn't about me being ready. It was about fear. That my mom was afraid if I met Elizabeth, I'd leave her behind. I asked her if she really thought that. She said she didn't know, but she thought it was possible. She said my mom had always been the one who kept things together, and if she lost me, it would feel like total failure. I asked Elizabeth what she wanted from me. Really. She said she didn't want money, didn't expect forgiveness, didn't even need a relationship if I didn't want one. She just wanted to know me, to see the person I'd become, to say sorry, to my face, and mean it. She said it was selfish, but she couldn't carry it anymore. I told her I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive her, but I appreciated her honesty. She nodded, said she'd take whatever I was willing to give. Then she asked if we could stay in touch, but only if I wanted. I said maybe, but on my terms. She didn't push. She respected that. We sat there for a while, talking about everything and nothing. Favorite shows, her cat, the best pizza in the city. It was weirdly normal. And for a second, I saw it. What it might have been like if things had been different. When I got up to leave, she stood too. For a second, I thought she was going to hug me. But instead, she just gently placed her hand on my shoulder and said, "Take care of yourself." When I got home, my mom was waiting outside my building. She asked if I'd seen Elizabeth. I told her yes. She asked if I was going to see her again. I told her I didn't know. She started crying, said she was scared of losing me. And I told her she wouldn't, but things had to change. I couldn't keep being the family's emotional glue. I couldn't be the peacemaker anymore. I told her I loved her, but I needed space and boundaries. And if she couldn't respect that, I'd have to step back from her too. She wiped her eyes and said she'd try. And that's all I needed to hear. The next week, things felt different. Grandma invited me over for dinner, just me and Grandpa. She made my favorite casserole. We didn't talk about the big stuff, just sat around, chatted about nothing. It was nice. Before I left, Grandpa handed me an old photo album and said, "This is your story too." I flipped through pictures of birthdays, Halloween costumes, awkward school plays, and for once, it didn't feel like something was missing. Megan, as always, has been the MVP. She bought new bath towels, called it Fresh Start Energy, and keeps reminding me to eat something green at least once a week. No big declarations, just steady support. I don't have a dramatic ending to this. No big family hug, no perfect resolution. My family's still messy, people are still mad, and I'm still figuring it out. But for the first time, I feel like I get to choose what happens next. I'm not anyone's secret, not anyone's excuse. And I'm definitely not the glue holding together decades of silence. So, that's it. That's the story. If you've made it this far, thanks. Seriously. Thanks for caring about a random stranger on the internet navigating a whole lot of complicated. If you're going through something even remotely similar, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but you're not alone. Sometimes the best you can do is just keep moving, keep breathing, keep going, even if nothing ever totally makes sense. Anyway, I'm off to eat leftover pasta and ignore the family group chat for at least another 12 hours. Thanks for listening.